Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final scenario of your exciting day, I hope. I've been employed today at great expense to come in and talk about telescopic handlers. If you put somebody on a health and safety course all day long doing one thing, they probably get bored. But doing it this way, where they have a 20 to 25 minute session on each thing, hopefully there's something of interest to everyone there, even though all the laws, all the health and safety laws are compliant to everything, but just specialising in that one field. So you might get some youngsters that drive telescopic handlers and they'll be interested, whereas if you had them looking at a cow all day long, they might not be interested, you know. So it just to spread the word and spread the training, really. So that's what the day's been about. Very often we look at the workplace sort of thing, and we go to work, we don't think of having an accident, or think we're going to be involved in it, because if we did, we wouldn't bother to turn up. We phone the boss saying, I'm not coming today, far too dangerous, you know. So accidents are things that happen within the workplace. Are all accidents preventable?
Yes.
They would be within reason, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of things are preventable. So we can go a long way to preventing that. So with our telescopic handler, there's two sides to an operation of the telescopic handler. There's operated in the work area, there's operated on the road. I'd like to talk very briefly about the road regulations, really. So the key factor to drive the telescopic handler on the road during working time, you must have a full car driving licence. So the key factor is that 16-year-olds with a tractor driving licence cannot operate that machine on the public highway. And if you've got a full car licence at 17 years old, the heaviest telescopic handler, combine harvester, self-propelled forager, self-propelled sprayer that you can drive on the road can't be any more than 3.5 tonne. So at 13, you can drive a tractor on private property, or you can sit in a tractor and be in it. But you can't put a youngster younger than 13-year-old in the cab, even if they're not, you know, so it's your own child or anything like that. The legislation says that they must be 13 or above before you ride in or drive on. Telescopic handlers, slightly different. So we can't let a youngster drive a telescopic handler on private property unless they're over 16. But when does common sense go out the window? It goes out of the window when we're in a hurry. And when a farmer's in a hurry? Nearly every day, you know. And common sense very often goes out. They might have been very safe in the activity they were undertaking for 7 hours of that day, and all of a sudden the rain's coming in across the fields. They rush to get the last load in or do the last thing before it gets wet, and that's when they take risks that they wouldn't have taken any other time of that day, and that's unfortunately when the accidents happen. Pure, the provision and use of work equipment regulation. It tells us we should only use the machine for the purposes it's designed for and to use it as the manufacturer recommended. So the manufacturer's handbook is a good thing to have a look at sometimes when you get a new bit of kit. Rollover protection guard on that one, falling object protection guard on that one. It's got a safe working load indicator in there, which should be compliant and working all the time, because a lot of farmers will cut the cable or switch the machine off because the noise annoys them. Now, he's weighted to take 2,600 kilograms. Any telescopic handler, by the time we boom all the way out, loses 2/3 of its lifting capacity. So all of a sudden it's gone from 2.5 tonne down to just over a tonne. So Lola regulations, another regulation that comes into handling equipment like this, is specific to anything that we use for lifting. So it's the lifting operations and lifting equipment regulations, and it covers everything we use in the workplace for lifting. So that could be a telescopic handler, it could be a sling, strops, chains, trolley jack, anything like that. And the law says it should be tested on an annual basis, and Richard mentioned earlier on he's had his done this year. If you're going to use a man cage, then it should be done every 6 months then. The Lola regulations also say that the operator should be trained with an awarding body like LANTRA or NPTC. It also says the safe working load indicator should be in place. It also says that the operator should check the machine before they use it. So what am I looking at on checking the machine really then? Well, basically I'm looking all around the machine to make sure it's safe. Good visibility is very important to us because we will crash into things if we can't see at the windows. Tyres and wheels need to be in good condition. Wheel nuts will come undone. And very often it's a brand new machine and the wheel nuts will come undone, and in a manual it will tell you to do them up, check them every 40 hours. So check the nuts. Have a good look underneath, because if there's anything hanging off it, any liquids coming out of it, it'll alert you to the fact that something's not right and safe. We spoke about tyres, and you can see this one's a little bit soft now, and that's because all the weight's down the hill on it. Just imagine when we pick up 2,600 kilograms in a minute, what we're doing. We're taking 2,600 kilograms off the back, and we're compressing the weight of this that makes the machine a lot more liable to on safety. Especially if we had a great big cut or gator in the tyre, when that goes down it's either going to pinch the tube, cause an explosion or blowout. And if you had the load up in the air when you do that, that's going to be quite a major disaster, especially if we decided to turn across the hill. Attachments on the machine. Whenever we put a machine on, we need to make sure the attachment is suitable designed. So if we put a man cage on here now, it would probably have a weight value on it, let's say about 800 kilos. And that would be the boss, not the telehandler. It's the attachment we put on that has the final control. So even says, JCB will say that the machine will lift 2,600 kilograms. It's this bit of attachment that tells us what we could use. We want to make sure it's attached safely. Quite a few accidents on farms have happened because we've put attachments on and we haven't put the locking pins in, or the right pins, the right connection. When I attach anything on the telehandler, I like to have the boom out a foot or so, or a couple of feet, and that allows you to get in and put all your external services pipes on without getting yourself covered in muck and damage and things like that. I also like to use gloves, and in my tractors or in my telehandlers that I'm driving, I've always got a pair of gloves inside the cab, so when I get out and I do anything, I keep my hands clean, protect them against oils and things like that. All the decals are in place, your safe working load indicators up there, make sure that's working. Obviously make sure you're sat in the machine quite safely and soundly, and Cass is going to give us a bit of a demo on some expert driving. Seatbelt is a compliant thing when you go out on the highways. It's a regulation that we should have it on a tractor or on a telehandler. Now, how often have we seen this on a farm? How often do we know if things like this happen on the farm? A bucket, pallet, potato box, they're all illegal. We shouldn't be doing it. And even though we're only lifting up to do something on a temporary basis, it's only going to be a quick fit, you know. And we all say nothing can happen because the machine's not moving. But soon as ever hydraulics, a person and a machine get involved with weather elements, things change. And if Kath is not paying attention to her job now, she can actually do something and the man comes down. Now when he started this morning, he was 9 foot long. Now he's only sort of 4'6". That sort of damage to anybody falling at that height can be life-threatening as well as serious injury. So if we wanted to lift anybody up, then we must lift them up in a purpose-built man cage. And what we're trying to do is sell all the good things that we should be engaging ourselves in using that machinery and that equipment to keep ourselves safe. If you can make it funny and compliant, if you can involve them, I think if you can get them to talk about, you know, there's some groups today have really involved themselves with accidents they know have happened locally, maybe not necessarily themselves, to their neighbours or anything like that. The more we can highlight the problems that they would have using that equipment or that style of work, really. Now, what other accidents happen with telescopic handlers? Visibility is generally reasonably poor on them. And of course, on farm in the community, what do we tend to do? We do a lot of other things while we're working. So Cass on the phone now, putting a bet on the 3:30 at Kempton, I think, not concentrating on what she's doing, and she's run into a man or knocked a man over. So the question I'm asking really is, what can we do to prevent that, apart from not letting Kath on the telehandler? If we don't use mobile phones, it's illegal to use them when you're traveling on the car. It ought to be the same when you're operating heavy, you know, expensive machinery. And it is quite well known that we can't do 3 or 4 tasks at once. And if you're doing something like a telescopic handler, you're actually doing 2 or 3 tasks because you're driving, you're operating your controls. Trying to operate a mobile phone at the same time can be very, very dangerous. What else could we do to improve cast visibility then? Well, we got mirrors on the side and we got a mirror on the back there, look, but that's purely a pickup mirror, just to see the pickup hitch. And it only shows roughly 18 inches around the pickup. If we change that for one of these ferritial type mirrors, they're about 45 to 50 pound and they're unbreakable basically unless you drive over them. If we put that one on there, then you would have a visibility display of about 9 foot all the way around, and that comes right underneath the back wheels. Now cameras are really coming into their own. So cameras are the way forward, I think, really, for a lot of this. They're not that expensive now. For about 140 pound you can buy a nice colour monitor with a magnetic camera that's wired to the back of the machine. Also, for about another £30, you can buy wireless magnetic cameras as an addition. So, have anybody got front-mounted linkage on their tractors? You have yes? And of course, when they go out to the gateways, Richard, onto the road, it's a long way out, isn't it, before they can see. So even something like a tractor with magnetic cameras, you could place them on the front of the machine here, or on there, and when you put the nose of that machine out through the gateways, out onto the road, you can see it. And because a lot of people are putting the cameras on the back of things like feeder wagons now as well, so they can see the reverse in. So for a decent £200 setup, you can have visibility all around, which cuts out all that damage and that possible thing. As a farmer, sometimes you think you're just a farmer, but you're a custodian of the countryside. You're able to teach people things. You've got a natural ability to cope with nature, And to pass that on to youngsters, I really get a big thrill over it. To pass it on to more senior people that are perhaps older than me or more established in the industry than me, if I've got something that I can teach them or help them, that feels good. I can go home and sort of smile about the day I've done.